You remember when you got her? You had hours and hours to just drive and dream. You spent your Saturdays fixing whatever needed fixing just to keep her running right. 20 years later, isn't it time you two got reacquainted? When you're ready, we're here. Because at LMC Truck, we know that while time may have passed, your passion for her never faded. Get her back on the road where she and you belong.
Now you're watching Gearz, brought to you by LMC Truck. Keep them on the road.
You know, everybody loves a good mystery, especially when it comes to the car world. That's why barn finds are so popular. People are always looking for those lost cars or trucks. Matter of fact, some of the most famous car stories come from finding those lost show cars or race cars, like the Richard Petty car that we found just a few years ago.
It's got to have big brakes, got to have big tires, got to have big sway bars and springs and stuff, because that's just part of it.
Oh, yeah. The Bullet Mustang is another example. Unearthed after hiding for 40 years in a garage. However, for every one of these automotive mysteries that are solved, there's still a lot of them out there that are unsolved. For example, Copperhead, a truck that I built over 15 years ago. Copperhead was a 67 short bed Chevy truck project that I came up with to show the incredible potential of the 67 through 72 GM trucks. It started out as just a frame and a cab, and it eventually ended up with the very first experimental 572 crate engine that Chevy let out the door. Packed with over 640 horsepower and capable of boiling the tires at any given moment, Copperhead not only ignited the GM Performance crate engine program, it also made a huge impression on millions of gearheads that watched the build and dreamed of doing something similar for themselves. But as fate would have it, I sold Copperhead about 12 years ago and it disappeared. And as time went on, people started to ask, where'd it go? What happened to it? Nobody knew. I didn't know. It had changed hands a couple of times. And as the popularity of C10 trucks continued to go up, more and more people began to try to find Copperhead with no luck. It was vanished, gone. Some people said aliens had it or Elvis had taken it. But the truth was, the truck was only gone from the public eye, because to Del Mickety, the truck was not only alive and well, it had actually become a part of the family.
And we watched this truck being built, and we just fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I wanted this truck.
Words really can't describe. You know, we saw it on TV, and then all of a sudden it was there in the flesh and life size, and you could smell it and feel it and hear it, and it was unreal. Pretty big moment.
Since Dale and his sons had watched the buildup of the truck together on the TV show, it was the perfect truck to have in the garage. But that's not all. They liked the colors so much that Dale had all of the semi-trucks in his truck fleet painted Copperhead metallic. I'm sure PPG loves it when Dale walks into the paint store.
Just fell in love with this color. I couldn't imagine a prettier color.
Yeah.
I'm a guy who always believed in white. White is great. It can be dirty as heck, but it's still clean.
Yeah.
Saw the Copperhead, and I vowed at that time, I worked for a company, I ended up buying the company, that if I ever owned the company, our new trucks were going to come in this color. We now have 250 trucks and about 400 trailers in this Copperhead color.
That's awesome.
And I want to thank you, because it adds about $1,000 per vehicle every time I buy one of those.
Now, usually when somebody gets a real high-profile vehicle like this, one of two things happens. They either trail it around to shows and never drive it, or they stuff it in a garage and never drive it. Fortunately, Dale didn't do either one of these things. He decided to use the truck. So he used it to cruise around town, to go out and eat, to take the kids and grandkids to get ice cream, to smoke the tires, to have fun. That's why the truck disappeared. It wasn't on the car show circuit. It was being used as a truck was made to be used. Since I built Copperhead with a lot of reproduction parts, and the bed is actually some of the first reproduction bed sides that LMC offered, it was only fitting that LMC Truck located Copperhead and offered it a spot in their booth at the C10 Nationals in Fort Worth. This gave me and the rest of the world the first public look at Copperhead in 12 years. The C10 Nationals in Fort Worth, Texas is one of the premier truck events in the nation. You'll not only see Chevy trucks from all eras represented, but you'll also see everything from wild custom trucks to daily drivers to unrestored originals cruising around. If you're into the show and shine, there's plenty of that. And the level of workmanship on some of these trucks is absolutely amazing. For those that want to drive their trucks, there's several options as well. You can smoke things up at the burnout contest, or test your reaction time at the drag strip, or show off your driving skills on the autocross. And since most of us have several projects that are unfinished, the C10 Nationals has a huge area of vendors where you can find everything from simple bolt-on parts to full-on reproduction bodies and chassis. But one of the main highlights of this year's C10 Nationals was the appearance of my old truck, Copperhead, in the LMC booth. This was the first time that the truck had been seen at a public show in about 12 years, and I, for one, was eager to see how the old girl had been treated over the years and how she had held up. The truck was virtually unchanged from when I had built it, with many of its secret battle scars still there, hiding in plain sight.
Okay, this is really nice. It's nice to know that the electronics still work. But one thing that people didn't see, people asked, did you get scratches on this thing? Did you actually drive it? Check this out. You see this big scratch right there? That happened from none other than one of the camera guys. Mark, did you do that? We were shooting something and he came in there and he tried to put a light on there. It wasn't Mark, it was another guy, and scratched it clear to the bare metal. And we're shooting it. So that's the old touch-up paint. That's never been completely fixed. And I wouldn't want to, because that's part of the history of it.
And surprisingly, the look, the stance, and the color were just as popular today as they were back then.
It's neat to see a truck come together and go from what it started to the finishing product, and absolutely beautiful.
It's one of the main reasons I'm here.
Yeah.
I was a pup, yay tall. Whenever you were building this,
yeah.
I kind of followed the story. I was jazzed that it could be done by a normal dude, which
yeah.
made me think, hey, a normal dude can do this.
Yeah.
And it kind of went out of the picture for years, and it's back, and I'm amped that it's here. It's awesome to see.
The biggest part of it was when he was telling you that the paint, the body was in the paint shop, but he wasn't telling you what color it was going to be. And that's, just wondering, made you want to watch the next episode so you found out what the color was going to be, because he kind of let you know that it was going to be awesome.
But the big question was, did it still have the balls of the Copperhead of old? Or had it just become a putt-putt cruiser? Well, all we needed was someone willing to drive it properly to find out. And I knew where the keys were hidden. And as you can see, with the headers open and your foot to the floor, this thing is just as bombastic and nimble as she ever was. The best part is, Copperhead's not stuck in a museum or a collection somewhere. No, Dale and his sons use it, and then it will be passed down to them, and subsequently their kids for them to enjoy. And that's the best thing you can do with a classic vehicle. Introduce it to the next generation and get them behind the wheel.
Since it's going to be my brother's one day, the wheels have been turning for a number of years on building something for myself. I've always had my eye on 85, but I'm not rushing into it. He's got this, and whatever I do, it's got to be special and maybe one up him just a little bit.
You know, one of the most popular upgrades to do to a classic car or truck these days is to swap in a modern performance engine with modern fuel injection. Now, obviously, this is really cool, but this can become a very expensive endeavor, not to mention all the extra time it takes to pull off a swap like this correctly. Now, if you've got to have a modern LS or Coyote or Hemi engine, this is the way to go. But there's a lot of people out there that would like to keep their original V8 or 6-cylinder or 4-cylinder engine if they could put modern fuel injection on it. For example, one of the best engines ever put into a Jeep was the old 258 straight six, because it was powerful, it was torquey, and it was just the right size for these things. But unfortunately, in the 80s, they saddled them with an emissions carburetor that just sucked the power out of them. You couldn't keep them tuned. They got horrible mileage. They were a mess. So we're going to show you how to fix that with a modern fuel injection and keep that cool engine. All right, this is Holley's new Sniper EFI for the Jeep Straight Six, and they have them for other two-barrel applications as well. Now, the cool thing about this is when you look at this, you think you're looking at a carburetor, but it's not. If you'll notice, there's a fuel injector there, and there's an injector there, and then the ECM is tucked behind this cover, so you don't have to find a place to mount the ECM on the firewall or the inner fender. Then, of course, you've got a couple of simple wiring harnesses, a controller, a temperature sensor, an O2 sensor, a mounting bracket for the O2 sensor. If you don't have that on your exhaust, you even have a fuel pump so you get the proper fuel delivery for this. Now, as you can see, this is a pretty simple looking thing. Holley has thought of everything, so let's get to work. Okay, the first thing that you need to make sure of is that your engine is in good working order before you start this, because you don't want to have to mess with that during the install. Because as good as this system is, it's not going to do anything for burnt valves or blown head gaskets or vacuum leaks. So make sure the engine is tuned up and running good before you start this. All right, with that established, now the first thing we'll do is disconnect the vacuum lines, the fuel lines, and get that old carburetor off of there and put it in the boat anchor box. You'll want to start by marking your vacuum lines and your wiring so you know where they go when you reassemble everything. Then remove the old carburetor. We'll follow that by getting rid of the old gaskets and replacing the old carb studs with the newer, longer ones. These are necessary due to the spacer that comes with the Sniper system. All right, with that old carburetor out of the way, we're going to spend some time cleaning things up and replacing things like the old heater hoses, the vacuum lines, the fuel lines, and any engine gaskets that might be leaking. Now, I know they're not included in the kit, but now is the perfect time to replace them. A squirt of Z-Max degreaser is a great way to break loose some of that stubborn crud. With that done, we'll install the new gaskets and then bolt on the Sniper throttle body. As you can see, it bolts right to the stock manifold and the throttle linkage snaps in place. Next, we'll install the coolant sensor into the manifold and reconnect the appropriate vacuum hoses to the throttle body. Finally, we'll connect the fuel lines. All right, this brings up the fuel system and an important point. This new throttle body requires about 60 psi of pressure. The original carburetor, about 5. So all of your rubber fuel lines need to be upgraded to not only handle that pressure, but also they need to be compatible with today's ethanol fuels and those AN style fittings. Now, you can go down to your local auto parts store and you can find fuel injection hose, but those fittings are going to be a little more of a challenge. So the best thing to do is go to Earl's, get yourself the right hose and the right fittings, and plumb it up right. The final step is the fuel pump, and Holley makes that really easy for you because they include an in-tank pump and pickup tube that's designed to slide right into your existing tank. So all you have to do is put it in, hook up the fuel lines, and you're ready to make your final connections. Okay, when you're making your final electrical connections, you may want to consider updating this old ignition system with a new distributor and coil and ignition box, because those will do wonders to making this engine run better. And we're going to do that, but after we dial in this fuel injection. And that's all there is to putting modern fuel injection on a classic Jeep engine. Pretty simple, huh? Now, if you're concerned about tuning, don't be, because all you have to do is push a few buttons on the calibration wizard, start the engine, and the sniper will self-tune as you drive. And once you experience the convenience and performance of fuel injection, you'll wonder why you messed with that old carburetor for so long.
And now, Parts Bin.
There is no doubt that we live in an ever-changing world, but one thing that will always remain constant: quality never goes out of style. That's why people will spend $7 for a little cup of coffee at the local coffee house as opposed to getting a big cup at the truck stop. Coffee house tastes better. That's why more and more people are getting into listening to vinyl albums as opposed to downloading music. The albums sound better. And that's why more people are talking about Wheel Hub magazine as opposed to the stuff you get at the local newsstand. Wheel Hub just looks better.
I will go to a shop and I'll spend some time before I shoot looking at the car and finding the details. I'm a detail guy. I love all the little, design elements of a car, how lines converge together and how the shapes are forming and how those, reflections work.
Wheel Hub is less of a magazine in the traditional sense. It's more of a tribute to the great cars and the great car builders out there right now. The cars being built today are just so phenomenally good, built by just exceptionally talented fabricators and car builders.
But as good as the photography and the layout is, Wheel Hub is not just a picture book. One of the best things about the magazine is the writing and the stories. And when it comes to ads, even those are so well done, they seem like they're part of the story.
People pick up the magazine. I think it's very immediately apparent to them that there isn't much of any connection between the editorial content and who is buying an ad.
It's true that not everything stands the test of time. It's got to be done to a high standard of excellence, and it's got to rewrite the rules. And in the magazine world, Wheel Hub magazine is not only rewriting the rules, they're completely changing the game for the better. One of the best things about the Jeep from the very beginning was the removable door. So you could take it off and jump in and out of the rig anytime you wanted to. The problem, though, with the removable door was options. You didn't really have any. You either had the heavy metal hardtop door with the roll-up window that required a place to store it when you took it off, or you had the flimsy canvas door that didn't seal well and you still had to have a place to store it when you took it off. Well, Bestop has come out with a third option called the core door. Check it out. The core doors are currently available for the 2- and 4-door Jeep Wrangler JK, and they feature a one-piece cast aluminum frame that's precision molded to fit perfectly, so you get the seal and the sturdiness of a hardtop door. However, they also have a removable center panel, so you get the open-air experience of a tube door. Now, it's a fact that sometimes you need a window. So Bestop also offers this OEM-style twill upper window assembly that slides right down into the core door and gives you a factory-style rubber seal just like a hardtop. But then, of course, you have a window that you can drop when you need some fresh air. Getting the best of both worlds is usually impossible. When it comes to a removable door, Bestop is giving you the best of 3 doors: the hardtop door, the soft top door, and the tube door, all in one door, the core door.
What are you working on? brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Mike Garnes from McArthur, Ohio, and his project is the 2000 Dodge Durango. But this project didn't start out like a normal project. He said he bought it for parts for $500, but then he started looking at it and got this crazy idea he wanted to solid axle it. And you can see by this picture, why just stop there? So he blew it all apart. He added axles from a 2001 Dodge Ram. He whacked off the roof, put in a full roll cage, built custom half doors and bumpers, and ended up with a one-of-a-kind off-road rig. Yeah, this is a really cool rig. I always thought those Durangos would look good with the top off of it, and now you can see they will, man, make a great project. So Mike, man, to recognize such a great project, and in fact you had the skills to do it, we hooked up with our buddies at Woodward Fab. We're gonna give you one of these bead rollers. It's not only the roller, but it comes with a bunch of dies so you can make all kinds of beads and shapes and cuts in a panel. Also, you're obviously a real gearhead, so we're gonna give you one of our Gearz t-shirts. Then we're gonna give you one of our project planning books so you can keep track of everything you've done on that Durango. And we're gonna give you a copy of Wheel Hub magazine so you can check out what other people are doing in garages across the United States. And then we're gonna give you one of our Purple Bicycle books so you can remember what it was like to be a kid. Also, to help you on those parts you're gonna need, we're gonna give you a gift card from LMC Truck, which is good for anything in their catalogs. And finally, we're gonna give you one of our new Gearz tow trucks, because everybody's got to have a little tow truck. Now, for the rest of you guys, if you wanna get in on this, get your project featured on the show, go to the website, go to Gearz Nation, and submit it into What Are You Working On. The website's also the place to find out more information on any products you may have seen on the show, any Gearz merchandise, and how to join Gearz Nation so you can stream any of our episodes commercial free. Finally, don't forget to like us on Facebook so you can get some behind the scenes footage of our weekly web series, Shifting Gears. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Hopefully you have a project waiting for you out in the garage. If you don't, there's a lot of 2000 Durangos sitting out there waiting for you to grab hold of one. Mike showed you it's possible, so get out there. Start working on something. We'll see you next time.